Hello, my name is Steve and I'd like to welcome you to the OhioOutdoors.com. This is going to start a series of videos on the traditional archery side of things. What we're going to do is start off by teaching you how to build a string jig for a Flemish style string for a traditional bow, and also building what they call a continuous loop string for your recurve or longbow. Today what we're going to cover is how to build the jig so that you can build a Flemish string bow. Items that are going to be required for building the jig is a nice piece of wood. You can use anything from a 2x4 to a nice piece of oak. I've chosen mahogany. Depends on how pretty you want your jig to look. Anything will work. The dimensions are pretty important though. You want to use a 3.5 inch wide by 30 inch long board. The depth doesn't really matter. This is a 1x4 piece of mahogany. The other piece required is a 5/16 dowel rod. I'm using wire nails, 1.25 inch, brass plated. You're also going to want a straight edge of some sort. Your tape measure, a knife, a Sharpie marker, and your pencil. You also want a drill index for drilling the holes in your board, a drill press, or just any type of drill will work. I prefer using a drill press just because I know I'm getting even straight holes in the wood. So from there we'll continue on by starting with our board. Now that we want to get started, what we want to do is figure out which end of the board we want to use. So the dimensions we want, again, are 3.5 inches wide. Depth doesn't really matter, but we want 30 inches long. So let's go ahead and mark our board for 30 inches. Take our straight edge, make our mark. Now the other dimensions that we're going to go over are all dimensions to be able to drill our holes, set our nails, so that we have the proper settings for all the strands, for the different strands of bundles that we're going to be using for our string. So the first end we're going to do is the end for the bundles. Just so you can see, there's multiple sets of nails here, and that determines on how many strands you have for the bundle of string. What I want to do is mark 1 inch from the end of our board on both sides. Then we're going to make a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So these will happen in 1/2 inch increments. And we will make a mark from each side of the board, 1 inch in from each side. Take our straight edge, mark our lines, then go across. This concludes the markings on this end of the board. Now what we want to do before we start making the markings on this end of the board is we want to go ahead and get this end cut. So I'm just going to do that with my circular saw. Okay, now that our board's cut down to 30 inches, we're going to finish making the rest of the marks on this end of the board. Now we want 2 nails on this end of the board. One inch from the end of the board and 1 inch from the side of the board, each mark. So we'll make it our 1 inch marks from the sides and make our 1 inch mark from the end. Now we want to mark center of the board for the 5/16 dowel rod. We're going to come 3 inches from the end of the board. And make our first mark there. That's going to be our first hole for our dowel pin. And we're going to continue until we have 14 holes. And we're going to continue in 1 inch increments. Okay, now that we've got all our markings made, we can continue on to the drill press. The holes we're going to drill first are the ones down the center. These are for your dowel pin rod. These are the ones that determine the length of the string for the bow accordingly. So what we're going to do is drill 5/16 hole so we can have a hole that our dowel rod will move up and down, and we can position it accordingly to the length of the string that we want to make. Now I've got my drill press set so that I don't drill all the way through the wood, so that I just come within about an 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch from going all the way through the wood. Now that we've got our holes drilled for our dowel pin, so that they'll just slides right in and comes back out easily, we'll change our drill bit and drill all. Now we got our drill bit changed. We'll drill all the holes for our nails. Again, I got my drill press set that I'm not drilling all the way through the wood. Now that we've got all our holes drilled, we can continue on with our next step. Now you'll notice on the end of the board that we'll be numbering for all the strands that we want in our bundle. There's a line down the center. What you want to do is take your knife and groove that line down the center, because when we get to making strings, that's where we will cut our string. So you want to make sure you have a nice center line groove there, so you know you're cutting your string in the same place every time. Scoring mahogany with a knife is pretty decently easy because it's a softer wood compared to oak or some of your hardwoods. Now that we've got that done, we take our brass nails, our hammer, with the holes being pre-drilled, nails go in nice and straight and easy. This is why I like to use a drill press rather than just a regular hand drill, is because with the holes perfectly straight, the nails go in super easy. Now the nails you're using, you want to make sure you're not using a ring shank nail. You're wanting a smooth shaft nail, because when we go to string, what ends up happening is if you have a ring shank nail, that can grab your string, and you want that string to stack perfectly on top of each other as you're doing your string. Okay, we're now marking our dowel rod pin markers for the length of bow. We start at 48 and continue at 2-inch increments. So 48 to 50, 52, 54, 50. This allows you to make a string for a long bow or a recurve from 48 inches to 74. Now we just have a couple more marks to make that have to do with the string making process for markers that we'll use. What we did was we made a 3-inch mark here, and then from the end of the 3-inch mark we make an 8-inch mark. And we mark that accordingly. This becomes very important once we make our string. Now the other thing I like to add, just for personal reference and as a reminder, is how many strands of string per pound of bow. So the standard, usually up to 40 pound, you use a 10 strand string per bundle. 40 to 50, use 12 strands. 50 to 60, 14 strands. 60 to 70, use 16 strands. That's just something I personally do. You don't have to do it, but I like to. And at that point, you finished your Flemish string jig. Well, now that we've finished our Flemish string jig, all we need to do is make a Flemish string. So stay tuned, that will be the next instructional video on the traditional archery side at theohiooutdoors.com. Thank you for viewing. Have a wonderful day.